Welcome back to Business of Drinks. I'm Erica Duecy.
And I'm Scott Rosenbaum. Today, we're talking with someone who's built a striking case study in how a legacy winery can reinvent itself for modern consumers. We are having a discussion with Max Rohn, CEO of Wölffer Estate Vineyard.
If you're not on the East Coast, you may not realize just how influential Wölffer has become. It's a second-generation, family-owned winery in the Hamptons, producing about 250,000 cases a year, with wines ranging from $25 to $100. But more than that, Wölffer has become shorthand for conviviality, celebration, and a very specific sort of lifestyle energy.
And this is all translating directly into the brand's performance. This is at a time when so many wine brands are really struggling. Wölffer's secret? They've made themselves relevant to the way consumers actually live or desire to live today. They aren't chasing one demographic, they're creating smart entry points across the board.
Yeah, their flagship Summer in a Bottle is now the number 3 luxury rosé in the US, sitting right behind big brands like Whispering Angel and Miraval. Their non-alcoholic wine, Spring in a Bottle, is the number 1 luxury NA wine in the country. And they've extended the brand into premium cider along with single serves that meet modern convenience occasions.
The real unlock is that Wölffer isn't just selling what's in the bottle, the juice, right? They are selling a worldview. You'll find them poured at polo matches and sailing regattas. Their winery and farmstead draw roughly 150,000 visitors a year. They've even forged partnerships with other aspirational brands like luxury designer Brunello Cucinelli and makeup brand NARS. For me, they developed a rosé sorbet with the ice cream brand Van Leeuwen, which I absolutely adore. And, it's this kind of social presence, this ubiquity that they built that really amplifies the lifestyle brand at scale.
Yeah, and every part of this business reinforces that feeling, that sort of Hamptons in the summer state of mind. And the cohesion, it is really paying off. In this conversation, Max takes us inside the strategy, why they grew slowly and organically, how they've kept the brand aspirational without losing its authenticity as they've scaled across the US, and why disciplined distribution and velocity matter more to them than chasing volume.
This is a clear blueprint for staying relevant and winning in the ever shifting wine market. So let's get into it. Here's our conversation with Max Rohn of Wölffer Estate. And now, a word from our sponsor.
The best growth partners understand both sides of the equation, capital and commercialization.
And that's exactly what makes Intercontinental Beverage Capital different. They combine serious financial strategy with hands-on operational expertise, helping beverage brands thrive in today's complex markets.
One example we love, they worked with a fast-growing coconut water brand to reorganize its business model, map the resources needed to accelerate its trajectory, and secure critical operating capital. And that's just one of dozens of success stories.
So, whether it's investor preparation, retail execution, or building the roadmap between the two, Intercontinental Beverage Capital is in the cockpit with you every step of the way.
To learn more and set up a free consultation, visit inbevcapital.com. That's INBEV capital.com. And now back to the show. Max, thanks so much for joining us on the Business of Drinks.
Thanks, Erica. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thrilled to have you here. So let's start off with your background. You joined a family business that really has become one of the most recognizable East Coast wine brands. So tell me about your background and how those experiences prepared you to lead Wölffer Estate.
Okay. Well, I actually joined Wölffer through love, not through experience. I was on the Long Island Railroad for my first time out to the Hamptons in 2008 and sat next to an incredible woman named Joey Wölffer. So we got married a couple years later and we're doing our thing in the city. I was a management consultant and she worked in fashion. And we had really no plans, no ideas about the winery. This was her father's project. So Christian Wölffer first planted vines in '88 and hired Roman Roth, our winemaker and partner, soon after. And this was his thing. But he died tragically in 2008. And the winery handed down to essentially Joey and her brother. But initially, Joey was not planning on being part of the winery. And I certainly wasn't. But we sat down and said, oh, let's not move so fast. And so we went to her brother, Mark, and said that we actually don't want to be out of the winery. And he couldn't have been happier. He couldn't have been more generous, more open, not guarding the business, and welcomed his sister with open arms and then welcomed me soon after. So that was a key inflection point in the winery, moving away from being a traditional local winery to being something bigger. And it's rare to have a transition down to the children. I think that's so smooth. And then as far as myself, I didn't have any wine experience at all. And I did have a management consulting background. So that allowed me to have the confidence to jump into the business. But on the wine side, I certainly did not have the experience that is typically asked for in this role. And so I relied on people, and it created an immediate management style that relied on great people. And so I hired people to tell me what to do rather than me tell them what to do, and really worked to release the brakes on the business and allow it to flourish. So, and I think I still carry that style to this day. So that I've learned wine since then. Certainly I love wine. I'm passionate about it, but it was actually not my beginnings.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think a lot of those skills that you had in management consulting definitely came into play. So tell me about the trajectory of the winery. So at the time that you and Joey came on board until now, tell me about that growth trajectory.
Sure. So as I said, the first vines were planted in '88, and it was um, a 20 to 30,000 case winery until the children took over as owners. But already in the beginnings, Roman and their father Christian decided to do something that they love, which is rosé, and do a European style rosé, a French style rosé, a traditional one. And it turns out that the climate is particularly well suited for it. And Roman is a winemaker, a German winemaker that has a particular affinity and style that just lends itself well to rosé. He jokes that everything he touches turns to pink. And it's pretty true. So when it was not even a category in the United States, it was still blush wine. So it was 88 cases in the early 90s, and you could not even give it away at the time. But the Hamptons, where the winery is located, and rosé certainly go hand in hand. And as the excitement of rosé began in the 2000s, the late 2000s, the early 2010s, Wolfer was just already right in the middle of it, making a beautiful, elegant, crisp rosé dry. And then the Hamptons with the lifestyle here in New York City, it became an immediate, well, not an immediate, but it became a cult classic. So we joined actually in the beginnings of that growth. And so we were very lucky to have already these roots in place. So the next biggest change is that we really came in with a view, a non-traditional view, an outside view, and took inspiration from other, and weren't afraid to make changes. So we actually, our first product that was out of the box was the hard cider, and of course it had to be a rosé cider. And the two at the time were growing rapidly. So the combination of rosé and cider just exploded that product to become one of the top craft ciders in particularly in New York City and the Northeast. And then soon after, my wife was told by one of her friends that our wine is like summer in a bottle. And she said, I love that. We have to use that. And we created actually an ad campaign of our estate rosé, which has the gold label, stuffed with flowers in this ad campaign. And we were at a charity benefit here in the Hamptons with Roman and Mark and Joey and myself sitting around this table and just admiring this advertisement. This is our first advertisement. It felt very big at the time. And Roman said, let's do this wine. And he created this vision of this bottle that was wrapped in flowers called Summer in a Bottle. And our designer, who I found through my previous company, is in the UK. So I had this outside perspective of what the Hamptons is. Created this bottle with the flowers around, with the checkered capsule, and we had we created 1,500 cases of it, and it just disappeared. And we we then the next year we created more, 3,000, 5,000, 10, and it continued, and it would just sell out. Our distributor would just say, make as much as you can, make more. But we're a very small wine region. Long Island is 3,000 acres of vines. Our vineyard itself was only 55 at the time. So we wanted to of course maintain the quality. And so we moved slowly and we grew it as much as we could, but it was just never enough. At the time, there were some fun things that happened. So the New York Post ran an article in 2015 that said the Hamptons is running dangerously low of rosé. And it was like this sort of joke. It was almost a meme article. It was correct. The Hamptons did run out of rosé at the time, but it flew around the world. And that was about Wölffer and Whispering Angel. Of course, Whispering Angel went on to be who they are today. But we were really much more limited, and our mindset was really on staying as a smaller boutique winery, and so did not have the at least the volume growth that a Whispering Angel had. But we certainly, the demand was there.
Yeah. Well, let me just interject there because for people who aren't on the East Coast, I think you may not realize how big of a phenomenon this was. So I remember when Summer in a Bottle came out and, it had those beautiful flowers and designs all over. It's like a decoupage sort of, style of design. And when this came out, like Max is saying, it could not keep it stocked. It was incredible how much everyone in New York City, in the Hamptons, had to have this product. And I was just looking at some Circana data. Today, Summer in a Bottle ranks as the #2 luxury rosé in the country, and it grew 42% in dollar sales over the first half of the year, which is incredible growth, especially at a time when you hear a lot of people talking about declines in rosé overall. So what would you say is the secret to this product success? How and why did it become such a juggernaut?
Well, if you could imagine, we actually grew it slowly and organically. So I think had we had access to the grapes and the inventory, um, then it naturally we would have been, incentivized to grow it much faster. But because again, we're working with Long Island, a small region, it restrained us. And I think that kept it exclusive, that kept it at where we focused our placements on just the areas that worked, where we released only small amounts to Florida. We only released small amounts to Texas and so on. And I think that, and that still continues to today. We're lucky to work with Winebow and Maverick as our two primary, and now Johnson Brothers as our distributors, and they're fine wine distributors. They're well versed in consulting on high end products. One major inflection point for us is that we had international ambitions. This being an island where we always want to get off the island, and we started making a rosé from Argentina. It was actually from my father-in-law's vineyards, then Mark Wölffer's vineyards in Argentina. And Christian Wölffer had a dream of making wine in Argentina. Before he tragically passed away, he was in process of actually buying a winery in Argentina, largely tired of writing checks to the winery in Long Island at the time, thinking that Argentina was going to be the next big thing for him. But he passed away before he could realize that dream. So we went to Argentina, again, with this lack of rosé, the lack of ability to supply the market, and created a new product from Argentina, a Malbec-based rosé in this beautiful bottle called Finca Rosé. And we imported it. It's a beautiful rosé. It still maintained a sort of a niche position in the market, but it got our appetite wet for working with other countries. And so in 2020, we decided it's sort of the ultimate COVID project. We went to France and went to the homeland of rosé, and carried our experience in making rosé to the heartland and came out with a sister product called Summer in a Bottle Côte de Provence, which is the one now that we really focus on areas outside of New York, which has the Summer in a Bottle Long Island, the traditional one. And then the Summer in a Bottle Provence goes to Florida and Texas and California, where we're still actually quite small in those big markets. So that we are more saturated in New York, the Northeast, and in these larger markets of California and the West, we're still small. So getting that growth is certainly easier than when you're much larger.
Yeah, and for context now, Wölffer is making about 250,000 cases across all of its product lines. So let's back up a little bit to talk through the product lines in all of the different product lines in the Wölffer portfolio. So we've touched on a couple, but for people who aren't so familiar with the brand, walk us through all of them.
Sure. So our major product, our hero product, if you will, is Summer in a Bottle. And again, there's Summer in a Bottle Long Island and Summer in a Bottle Provence. From there, the Summer in a Bottle line actually extends into Sauvignon Blanc. And that's an area we're really excited about. We launched a Summer in a Bottle Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire that is just such an exciting package and opportunity. And then the next major area would be our non-alcoholic. So we started going, actually, we've had a long history in non-alcoholic products. Roman has been making a verjus, which is essentially wine grapes that have not been fermented. So pressed early, pressed fresh right into the bottle, essentially. And so it's grapes like Chardonnay and Merlot and so on, pressed directly into it. Beautiful juice that we've been selling for many years and largely goes to chefs in New York City as they substitute it for lemon juice and vinegar and so on for their cooking, but you can mix it and make a beautiful non-alcoholic wine. So we extended that into first one called Petite Rosé, tends to be more for kids and an option for children at the winery. And then Mark Wölffer had the idea to make a non-alcoholic from Germany, where he is from. And he connected to some friends of his that were making a beautiful non-alcoholic product in Germany. We made a non-alcoholic sparkling rosé called Spring in a Bottle. And that's a product that's now growing at about 100%. And it's now the number one luxury non-alcoholic wine in the United States, according to IRI, and has the highest per store dollar amount of any of the top non-alcoholic wines. So we're really excited about that product. And then from there, we have our cider business, which is largely based in the Northeast. It's a wine-like cider in a 4-pack called Wölffer 139 cider. And then we've got our more traditional whites and rosés, whites and reds from the winery, which is where we become more of a traditional regional winery making fabulous high-end products.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a portfolio across so many different categories. And I think we'll dive into all of those. But I'm curious, I understand that Wölffer has grown completely organically with no outside investors. So can you talk a little bit about how you've approached financial responsibility, scaling profitably while staying independent? These are all things that a lot of wineries struggle with, especially these days.
Right, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, Christian Wölffer, for the first 20 years of the winery's existence, just wrote checks into the winery. He was successful in other areas of business and real estate and had the ability to do that. He actually only saw it profitable for 1 year, sadly, before he passed away. And then when the winery handed down to the children, we just don't have that luxury. So we had to have it make it profitable. So it's right from the beginning, we made a commitment to watch the bottom line. And I think that lends itself to growing organically. You can create brands with an exit strategy maybe, and you want to invest in it, and they say you should invest like it's 2 years from now. We did not have that mentality. We always focused on the bottom line. And several big components of that. One is around starting small. So with all of our products, we started with maybe 1,000 cases, 1,200 cases. We've even done products that were 300 cases. And we're lucky to have a platform of our rosé network and our fabulous location here in the Hamptons with an incredible amount of customers that come through. So we're lucky to have that as really a test base. And so we're very careful in not getting ahead of ourselves in production. Not that we've been the best at it. Certainly COVID posed a huge problem in inventory because people could not drink enough at the time. And we thought that would continue. So probably like many wineries, we overinvested in inventory and we're left sitting on it. Then the flip side happens. You get gun shy and make too little inventory, and then you're out of stock all of a sudden. If you could imagine, the areas where we're currently down are areas that we've had to stock out of product tied all the way back to COVID, which is just unbelievable to think that I'm mentioning the word COVID right now. That's the kind of the life cycle of wine, the amount of time you need ahead of production to make predictions. Very challenging to in wine. We're growing the fruit and have to make a decision of how much you're going to make for the following, it could be 2-3 years out, and you've got to decide that upon harvest. So really being conservative and being careful with production has been a key challenge for us in maintaining profitability.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's move on to talk about the Wolfer brand. So tell me about the common DNA. What is it that ties all of the products and product lines together?
Sure. Well, first of all, Roman Roth is now on his 34th vintage, I believe, is just an incredible winemaker with tremendous consistency and a direction of style. So when you buy a Wolfer product, you know you're going to get something that's approachable, that's fresh, that dances on your tongue, like he says, that is flavorful, aromatic. And that's a theme across all of our products, whether it's summer in a bottle, whether it's spring in a bottle, non-alcoholic, whether it's the cider, even our red wines. They're fresh, they're fruit forward and really drinkable in the summer. So the summer is a major theme for us, of course, being the Hamptons. And we want people to be transported here to the Hamptons. We want them to be transported to friendships, to sunsets, to just wonderful memories and with people in nice weather and in the lifestyle of the Hamptons. And so that's a common theme across both the product and then certainly the packaging. The packaging is what really makes it move on the shelf when there's nothing else. When you're selling in Oklahoma and they've not heard of Wolfer, it's the packaging that gets them to try it. And summer in a bottle packaging is something that is, and I believe is still ahead of its time and groundbreaking. Just the technical details of creating a bottle that is wrapped in extremely detailed, extremely colorful flowers is a feat that frankly we work on every year to improve. And it's at the production facility, which we now use two in around the world, is the most challenging bottle that either have ever worked on. It's a 7-layer screen printing process of organic ink, one color at a time, layered on top of each other with that detail. It's very, very difficult to pull off. And at any rate, the packaging is ultimately something that wows people. It's something that they want to take home. They want to bring it to friends. It has a little bit of champagne, of Veuve Clicquot. You want to bring it to a friend's house to share with them, to give to them as a gift. And so that's been a major theme and a major driver of our business in the flower theme. And it's not that people try to copy it all the time, but something about the design that I think gets there. And then also the brand beyond it resonates. It's not just the bottle. It's not just the liquid on the inside, but we do a lot of work in creating a magic and an image uh, around the brand that I think that resonates and connects with consumers.
Yeah, and the brand feels very aspirational. And a lot of it, probably to me, because I'm familiar with the Hamptons, it feels very rooted in the Hamptons lifestyle, celebration, gorgeous summer days. So I wondered about how you think about maintaining that premium positioning and conveying the brand attributes as you expand nationally.
Sure. So the Hamptons is an important part of our story and who we are. And we're deeply rooted in the Hamptons. So not only is it 120 acres in the middle of the Hamptons, and you can't come here without bumping into Wölffer, but we're very involved in the community. And we work with the local charities, local schools, local fire department, and we're deeply rooted with the people around us, and that gives a very positive aura. And when you come to the Hamptons, you're likely going to open up your friend's fridge and see Wölffer, and they do it because they like what we do here. And as far as aspirational, that comes back down to my wife Joey. She is the image of the rosé drinker. I'm biased, but she is beautiful. She's tall. She's extremely fun, extremely witty, extremely charismatic, and carries the image of what the Wölffer wine drinker is. And she's got an Instagram following of her own that's got tremendous engagement and has her own love in the community that really defines Wölffer and provides that image of the aspirational image for the rosé drinker.
Yeah, well, let's touch on Instagram and social followings for a minute. So, Wolfer has more than 101,000 followers on Instagram, which is a huge amount for a brand. And, it has a very recognizable visual style. So, I wanted you to tell me a little bit about the secret sauce. What is driving your social media strategy?
Well, it definitely didn't happen overnight. So when we started, we were working with mailers that went out with spelling mistakes and terrible visual design, and then Instagram happened, and it was disorganized and loose. It's something that you have to sort of mold and craft and figure out who you are within it. And I think that's been an important theme for us, is never straying away from who we are. And I think that's a pillar for a great brand, is just knowing who you are. And so we try to emanate that throughout the Instagram and social and our newsletters and all of our outreach. So it's largely about the Hamptons. It's largely about the image of the flowers in the bottle, and but at the same time, we have to maintain the wine quality. A Roman pulls us back into, all right, let's do posts about the soil, do posts about the wine growing, about the production, about our scores. We are lifestyle, but we never lose sight of conveying the quality portions of our quality base. So the another component of our social strategy is really in staying authentic. And I think that the best Instagram socials out there are really run by the owners themselves or the key people within the business, which is, at a business our size, is frankly difficult. But still, Joey stays very close to it, really directing her style and authenticity into our Instagram.
Yeah. And for the, digital storytelling that happens on Instagram or other channels, is that more useful to the brand as brand awareness, or does it actually drive sales or visitation?
Well, we haven't had much success in selling wine off of Instagram. So we've tried that and we've moved away from it largely. So we use it mainly to convey the brand, to create that something special out there. And we want people to follow it. So we don't want to be just just showing deals and promotions and things like that. And so we really use it to help build the brand. And that's important because as we go to California and we work in Southern California, for example, they're not as familiar with the Hamptons. They're not as familiar with Wölffer. And it becomes more important to have a national presence at that point. So we really work to create partnerships and collaborations that will translate into national awareness for Wölffer.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those collaborations. So with NARS makeup or Van Leeuwen ice cream, even the clothing brand Cucinelli. So how do you evaluate those partnerships and understand which ones are right for the brand? And what have you learned from those types of collaborations?
Sure. So again, it's really figuring out who you are and aligning brands that don't stray away from who you are. So the NARS brand, for example, that's the same aspirational woman, this target that we both share. So it just made a lot of sense to partner with NARS. And it was the first collaboration they've ever done like this. Very forward for them, very new. And we actually created a custom bottle that we sold directly from the winery. And it was a cross brand and where we got our designers together to create this bottle that conveyed both brands, and it worked. We had an incredible party around it where we wrapped a bus coming out to the Hamptons and invited people that would be able to share that with their followers, and it really worked. We did a similar one with Zimmerman, which is a women's clothing brand, and that was a custom bottle, and it's the kind of thing that gets picked up. People want to talk about it. They want to write about it. And it creates an awareness for Wölffer that you wouldn't have had otherwise. The most exciting one to me is the Brunello Cucinelli partnership that we've had here at the winery for the past few years. So we did two events with them in the past 2 summers where we got together and celebrated both brands. And it was such a wonderful sharing of values of two family brands that although we're in largely different markets that spoke the same language, that um, that was really a beautiful thing, and they're an incredible world phenomenon right now. To be on the same level and to be spoken about in the same sentence as Brunello Cucinelli is something humbling and beautiful. And then certainly others we've shied away from. Others have not worked. In the beginning, we thought that just partnering with somebody was the cool part, but it's actually, you have to look at what you're going to get out of it. What kind of following do they have? What kind of customer do they have? Is there alignment? And we've done products with people where they didn't know the other brand. And I said, this is the coolest brand. You got to know them, but nobody knew. And so it didn't play out. So we really have now shied away from areas of collaborations that are too niche and it's on the same level in a sense as Wölffer. It's maybe earlier. It's little. I'm just thinking of one in particular. Just n- not polished, not there yet. They could be on fire, but it still doesn't look good to collaborate with them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's circle back a little bit to product innovation because I think there's so much here to discuss. Wolfer was pretty early to the low ABV and lighter style trend. So, along with Spring in the Bottle, you also have a 7% ABV Hampton's Light Low Alcohol Pinot Blanc. So, tell me about that product. How is it doing, and how do you see this lower alcohol segment evolving?
So this product came to us through Mark Wolfer. Again, it was something that he was drinking in Europe. And in the European wine scene, they are further ahead in non-alc and low alc. And it's an area that we think is going to come. It's certainly a very small market right now, but there aren't many luxury low alcohol options. And you're borrowing in a sense from other alcoholic beverages like beer, where you find like 3-4% beers, which I love. And you're saying that the wine is going to get there. And if you do it in a way that with intention and you do it in a way with a focus on quality, the product it's really like you're drinking alcohol, but just having 7% alcohol is a world of difference over zero, which I think we do an incredible job at zero. But all of a sudden, having a little bit of alcohol in there makes it really feel like a wine.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about the cider portfolio. So that's built a strong following over several years. How does that fit strategically into the brand family?
Sure. So the story of cider is again a very it's an organic one. Roman had been making an apple wine, a traditional German apple wine, for many years before we joined the business. And as we were brainstorming of what we were going to do as the the young owners, our friend said that you got to look at the cider market, and cider is something that we love. And we went to Roman, and he said that it's cider is just is simply an apple wine that's carbonated and fermented to 6 point, something lower than an apple wine, which is 11-12%. And that was in 2013 that we created the rosé cider, and it grew like wildfire until about the 2018, 2019 timeframe, and was you could almost see the turn to seltzers and those type of drinks, the Trulies and White Claws, through our customer, because it was a customer that was tired of the traditional, that was tired of feeling bloated with beer, that didn't want a full wine, that wanted something more exciting, more approachable. Um, and it grew like crazy until it leveled out as the truly seltzer phenomenon then took hold in 2018, 2019. But it's maintained a loyal following, and now it's about 80,000 cases, largely in the New York, New Jersey area as the local craft cider. But then Whole Foods is an incredible partner, and they've brought it around the country for us. So it's now available nationally through Whole Foods, and it's a younger drinker, still interested in quality, and it comes in a variety of flavors, which has been really fun because it's actually sold more like a beer. It's a wine, but it's sold like a beer. And the beer distributors, they want new all the time. Beers, especially at the time where you had to come out with another one every few months. And so that forced us to look at the product in a different way, not as a wine, but as something that we could first produce as we sell, which is tricky if you're buying the apples right off the trees. And then secondly, come up with creative flavors. And it's been a fun ride. We're coming out with new flavors all the time. We have a cranberry spice cider flavor out for the winter that will then turn into a watermelon cider. So using the same SKU, having two products, which is something totally new for us, so that the retailers can keep the SKU and just swap out the product on the shelf. And it's been great. It allows us really to sell a product everywhere we go, from a convenience store to a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the brand awareness is so strong for those products, and I certainly see them in Whole Foods all the time. Well, that leads me to think a little bit about single serve. So the ciders are single serve, and I also see that a lot of the wines are single serve as well. Can you tell me, why is it important to have single serve options right now? And what's working better for you, meaning like cans versus glass?
Well, with our cider, it's interesting. It's a bit like it's one of these rare products that actually does better in glass. I think it's a higher end product. The ability to see the product through the package is important to our consumer. And then the twist off cap is important. So the canned cider has only maintained a niche position in places that require cans, but it sells better as glass. And so single serve. So we had this debate going in making cider, if it would be better off in a 750 as a boutique cider or as 355. And we know that at the table, there's probably only going to be one cider drinker out of a group. Opening a 750 is just not something that a bar wants to do. It's daunting. Opening a 750 as an individual drinker, it's just a lot to drink. So we knew that single serve was definitely the way to go in cider. And then in wine, we have put our spring in a bottle out there as single serve. That is tending to be much more of a 750 product. Without having alcohol, you can easily open a 750 and not worry about finishing it. There will be a place for the smaller 200 milliliter bottles, but the dominant package size is going to be 750.
Let's talk a little bit about Cabernet Franc. You've invested in Cabernet Franc and are part of a campaign called Cab Franc Forward for the whole region, and I think actually all of New York State. And so I'm curious why you chose Cab Franc as a focus for your reds and what you think the opportunity is for the state's producers.
Our red program is a very important one to us. We noticed that that New York has for a long time lacked an identity on red wine, and every region is judged by their reds. Just unfortunately, that's the way it is. So you've got Oregon Pinot Noir, Malbec from Argentina, Cabernet Sauvignon from California. And New York was always struggling with which grape that is. Merlot for a long time was the front runner, and Cabernet Franc was the blending grape that was added vineyard to add texture to the Merlots. But more and more people started doing it on its own, and Cabernet Franc started bubbling up to the surface in New York as New York's best wine. It's our best red. It's our neighbor's best red. And critics have been pointing to this. And but still there was nothing organized, nothing happening around this grape in a more formal way. And I felt that we needed to get together as a state to promote this grape, because if we do it as Long Island, if we do it as the Finger, if we do it as the Hudson River region, then it's not going to have enough recognition around the world. These AVAs are great for the more advanced wine drinker, but for the regular consumer, they're just not enough awareness already in these AVAs. And we could shout louder as a state. So I assembled a group and co-founded Cabernet Franc Forward with McCary Vineyards in the North Fork. And we put together 8 wineries from around New York that could collaborate on how to make Cabernet Franc known globally as New York's red grape. And it's been an exciting project. It's working. Certainly the press has been doing their part in recognizing New York Cabernet Franc. Now the buyers are taking part and bringing it on the shelves and putting it in their restaurants. And it's a grape that doesn't have a strong home outside of the Loire Valley, and New York is that rightful home, in my opinion. So it's also an it grape. There's a lot of interest in it right now in the wine community, and so there's a lot of attention on Cabernet Franc on its own. So it's the perfect grape to get behind, and then it's just natural in the climate here. It's disease resistant. It's cold hardy, and just grows well in the vineyard without wrestling with it to get it where it needs to be at both lighter styles and heavier styles. In fact, you've got lighter styles coming out of the Finger Lakes. You've got bigger styles coming out of Long Island where it's hotter, and Cabernet Franc does well in both. In fact, all areas of New York. So we're really excited about it. And one day we're going to have New York Cabernet Franc on the shelves in an Oregon wine shop, just as they have Oregon Pinot Noir in New York wine shelves.
I love that. All right, well, let's talk about the tasting room a bit, because I know you have a huge audience who comes through, some 150,000 visitors a year. How have you turned that visitation into a brand building and sales driving engine for Wölffer?
We're in the middle of the Hamptons. We're in a very lucky position for a winery. The Hamptons has its glitz and its glam. It's known around the world through television shows. It's also a very beautiful place. The nature is beautiful, the light, the air, and the history of farming in the Hamptons goes back centuries. And so our vineyard is just perfectly positioned and to attract a lot of people. So it's a challenge to handle 2,000 people in one Saturday of the summertime, but the team does an incredible job, and we work to create an experience that is relaxed, that's focused on wine, with servers that feel like family. And that's a lot of the comments that we get is the wine is wonderful, but I was really blown away by how kind and how helpful and how humble the serving staff was. And that just, warms our heart to hear. It's an incredible brand builder for the winery. And in fact, we have 2 tasting rooms. We have our main tasting room, which is more of a formal experience. And then we have the wine stand, which is just on the other side of the property. And it's an old farm stand. Over the summertime, it transforms into this beautiful grassy hill where you sit on your blanket with your children running and drinking rosé in the sunset, listening to live music. And it's something that is magical and special for people because there's not many places you can go in the Hamptons without a reservation. And it's a place where friends can meet up, where families can relax. And it's such a perfect environment for enjoying the beauty of rosé. And so we even have a family that comes in from Chicago over the summer. And when they go back to Chicago, their kids want to play Wölffer wine stand in the backyard where they play reggae music and they put out a blanket, and one kid is the cheese person and one kid is the grape juice kid, and they pretend like they're
That's so much fun. I love that. And you do a lot of events there. You've got concerts, you've got yoga in the vines, you've got paddle tournaments. Tell me about kind of, why you bring those events to the estate and like how it helps you, build community or what the other strategic reasons might be.
well, the concerts, it's really more about local music, local live music as not as a big act, but as an enhancement to the experience. The padel tournament that we do every year, we did our first one, and with a multi-year partnership, is one that really fell onto our laps beautifully over the summer, and we put it together in less than 2 months of having a padel court built in the middle of the vineyard. And if you don't know padel, it's this sort of more casual tennis, more faster than pickleball, but doesn't have the kind of the snobbery of tennis, if you will. Apparently, it's the fastest growing sport in the world. They play it all through Europe and South America. And we did a partnership with the PPL, Pro Paddle League, where they did an exhibition game in the middle of the vineyard. Such a great brand partnership because not only is it an extremely high-end clientele, but the lifestyle of padel fits perfectly with rosé. You've got cabanas around the court, and there's a DJ playing. You're drinking rosé in the sunshine, watching this incredible sport happen just almost within arm's reach. Truly incredible. They televised it around the world. And my brother was sitting in Spain and flipped on the TV, and there was Wölffer Estate playing on a primetime channel. Just awesome.
That's so fun. And, just as we start to wrap up here, I did want to ask, what does Wolfer's channel mix look like? Meaning, direct versus on premise versus off premise.
Our channel mix is growing more and more in our distribution. We sell about 20-25% consumer direct. And then we do self-distribution in the east end of Long Island in the Hamptons. And then we have a network of distributors with Winebow and Johnson Brothers being our two biggest, with a few others, including MS Walker in Massachusetts, and then some other smaller ones throughout the country. So that's the area that's taking sort of more and more of our business. As we say, we only have 4 walls in the tasting room, so much harder to grow that. And the product, what's really exciting about it is the dollars per store. It's something that we've focused on is controlling distribution and not growing too fast and concentrating on velocity. And that's what we measure everything by. Right now, it's as you said, it's the number 2 luxury rosé. So it's number 2 rosé in the United States, over $20. And the number 3, it actually has, Wölffer has 1/3 of the distribution as the third, but it sells more dollars in total than that wine. So it just shows that the rate of sale off the shelf is something just phenomenal. And that's the bottle, that's the wine, that's the brand, that's a lot of things coming together. That's the history, 30 years of making rosé, all to create that moment on the shelf that we just couldn't be more excited about in the future of Wölffer.
Well, you've got a couple decades at the helm now. And so I wanted to ask you, what is one piece of advice you wish that someone had given you as you embarked on this journey?
Wow. So I came in with no wine experience, and it was actually somebody that said to me that sticks out. It was very simple. They said, "Go with your gut." And as a former engineer, that was difficult to hear. But in wine, it's very true because there's first of all, there are a few right answers when you're drinking wine. There's drinking flawed wine, certainly, but what it does to you is a very personal experience. And so when you have a whisper of inspiration, if you have a fleeting feeling of what this wine has given you, then go with it. So that if you don't have a lot of confidence in wine, trusting your gut will certainly make a big difference. And then honestly, just applying that to business as well, to getting bolder, to taking risks. There's nobody that's going to tell you the right answer. There's no data out there that's going to lead you to the right answer. You got to go with what you think is right and try to hedge your risk as much as possible.
Great. And then a last question we always like to ask people is that, let's say a drinks entrepreneur asks you for a source of inspiration or useful information. What is it that you would recommend, whether it's online class, industry group, person to follow, that would provide a great source of insight or inspiration?
Well, other than the Business of Drinks podcast, no, I do love the Business of Drinks podcast. So thank you for what you put out there. It's just it's detailed and in a world of inspiration on its own to hear other people and what they're going through. We have always taken inspiration from other industries. And in working with Brunello Cucinelli and getting a chance to meet Brunello Cucinelli himself and spending time with him I think there are lessons there for all brands, because what they do is they don't speak about product features. They don't speak about the feeling that a product gives you, but they speak about values. They speak about humanity. They speak about something bigger, even larger. And as you engage with their products, as you buy their products, you're buying into their belief system, their values. And I don't think there can be any higher standard in a brand than conveying something, than having an image in somebody's mind of something much larger than the product itself. So it's really inspiring. It's something that we try to convey with our focus on the Hamptons, on summer, on lifestyle, on people, on quality, on the winemaking, on soil. And there's so much more that goes into a brand than just the product itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great place for us to leave it. Max, thank you so much for coming on the Business of
Thank
Drinks.
you, Erica. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Business of Drinks. Subscribe on YouTube at Business of Drinks Podcast, follow us on Spotify, or listen in on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Please tap the notification button so you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops.
And help us spread the word. Click those star ratings, give us a review, and share episodes or clips on your socials. It really helps us reach new listeners.
Finally, if there's something that you'd like us to cover on the podcast, tell us. We're at podcast@businessofdrinks.com or reach out via Instagram or LinkedIn.
We love hearing from you, and we respond to each and every message. Thanks, and see you next time.